Imagine applying for your dream job, and within, I don't know, 3 seconds of clicking submit, a machine just rejects you.
Yeah, instantly.
Instantly. And it's not because you aren't qualified or, because someone else had a better resume. It's because a completely opaque algorithm decided that your zip code combined with like your minor in college makes you a statistical flight risk.
Right, which is a fundamentally different paradigm from traditional human judgment.
Hmm.
I mean, when a person makes a decision about your future, there's a trail.
A paper trail.
Exactly. There is a logic that you can, theoretically at least, understand and appeal. But we are moving so rapidly into this landscape where doors simply refuse to open,
Yeah.
and the locking mechanism itself is entirely invisible to you.
Well, welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring this modern technological mystery that is honestly almost certainly operating in the background of your life right now.
Oh, absolutely.
Our source material today is an excerpt titled The Man Who Never Learns Why Doors Stay Closed. And this is drawn from a much larger body of work called Digital Sovereignty in the Cognitive Age, which you can find over at blogs.inspire-aspire.net.
And it's a great read because the author takes some, highly complex, abstract concepts regarding algorithmic systems and really grounds them in a reality that we all face.
Yeah, it makes it super relatable.
It does. The focus shifts from the data you knowingly provide to these digital platforms to the invisible conclusions those platforms are generating about you in the dark.
So our mission today is to really explore those invisible judgments. We want to understand how artificial intelligence takes perfectly accurate data and synthesizes it into a completely new, unverified reality about who you are.
Which is terrifying when you really think about it.
It is. And crucially, we are going to look at why the data privacy frameworks we've spent, the last decade building completely miss the actual threat. So if you have ever felt like your digital shadow is making life-altering decisions on your behalf, we are going to explain exactly how that is happening today.
Because the modern anxiety has evolved, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're no longer just worried about a data broker selling our email address.
Right. Getting spam.
Yeah, exactly. Now we're worried about a neural network silently concluding we are unreliable or unpromotable or uninsurable based on a mathematical correlation that no human being could ever parse.
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with the story in the text. The author introduces us to a man named David.
Right, David.
So David is navigating the modern job market, doing everything conventionally right. His resume is polished, his qualifications are solid, he's got a great track record.
He's the ideal candidate on paper.
Exactly. And over a period of months, he sends out dozens of applications to various companies, but he isn't getting interviews. At all. In fact, many of his applications are hit with lightning-fast automated rejections within an hour of submission.
Which almost feels worse than silence, because it proves a human being didn't even have the physical time to open the file and glance at his credentials.
Yeah.
The decision was executed instantly.
Yeah, by a machine.
Yeah.
And the rest of the applications just kind of vanish into a void. He never gets any feedback. And the defining feature of David's experience is this total darkness regarding the why.
He has no idea what's wrong.
Right. He assumes his resume just lacked, some keyword a recruiter wanted. But the text reveals the actual mechanism at play here. David's data, the input he provided, is completely flawless. He hasn't exaggerated his degree or lied about his employment dates.
No, his data is perfect. But the system isn't rejecting David because of his data. It is rejecting him because of an inference.
An inference. Okay, break that down for us.
So the AI screening systems used by these companies, they've digested David's perfectly accurate resume, right? And mathematically mapped it against vast historical data sets. In the realm of deep learning models, the algorithm basically translates David's life experience into vector embedding.
Vector embedding.
Yeah, essentially turning his background into a series of coordinates in a high-dimensional space.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks at how closely those coordinates align with the coordinates of previous successful hires, or, more importantly, previous failures.
Wow. So the machine is drawing a new conclusion that isn't written anywhere on the application at all.
Exactly.
For instance, maybe David took an 18-month gap to care for a sick parent. A human recruiter might see that and recognize, resilience and character.
Sure. A human sees the context.
But the algorithmic model just sees a statistical correlation with lower long-term retention rates.
Or perhaps it evaluates the specific university he attended. The model might downgrade his entire application because deep within the billions of parameters of its training data, Candidates from that institution historically didn't advance to senior roles at this specific tech firm.
That's crazy.
The model just absorbs those historical patterns. And this includes any historical biases or discriminatory hiring practices that generated those patterns in the first place, by the way.
Right, it just bakes the bias right in.
It does.
Yeah.
It recognizes the correlation, adjusts its internal weights, and preemptively flags David as a higher risk hire.
It feels like being back in high school and having a rumor spread about you, except the rumor is generated by a server farm, you never hear it, and you can never defend yourself against it. You just, walk down the hallway and notice everyone is closing their locker doors when you walk by.
What's fascinating here is how that analogy completely captures the fundamental lack of recourse. The source text identifies this space as the inference gap.
The inference gap.
Yes. It is the mathematical void between the objective facts you provide and the subjective conclusion the machine draws. This inference is entirely new information. David never supplied it.
Nobody checked it.
No human manager reviewed it to ensure it made logical sense. And David has absolutely no legal or technical mechanism to see it, contest it, or correct the record.
So the unverified rumor just becomes a functional reality.
Pretty much.
It is hard-coded into the system, dictating his career trajectory based on a statistical hallucination that he can't even perceive.
It literally becomes his permanent digital truth.
That is wild. But, okay, if this invisible scoring system can lock David out of a salary, the next logical vulnerability is how it affects the resources we already have. If an AI can declare you unhireable based on an invisible inference, we have to look at where else this machinery is operating.
Oh, everywhere. The inference gap operates at scale across almost every sector of the modern economy. HR software is just the tip of the iceberg here.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the source outlines a few other major domains where this is currently standard practice, like in insurance.
Right. Insurance is huge.
The algorithms are pulling in these seemingly disconnected variables, right? Your wearable health data, your micro-spending habits, your geographic location at various times of day.
Where you go, what you do.
Yeah. And they synthesize all of that to generate a highly personalized risk profile, adjusting your premiums or even denying coverage based on inferences you're completely locked out of seeing.
And lending has undergone the exact same transformation. I mean, we're all familiar with a traditional FICO credit score.
Sure, paying bills on time, that sort of thing.
Right. But now, AI systems generate creditworthiness assessments using non-traditional behavioral signals. The text highlights how models analyze your specific purchasing patterns down to the item level at the grocery store or even your social graph.
Wait, like who my friends are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Who are you connected to online? The AI ingests your digital social circle and outputs a financial risk score based on the people you know.
That is just mind-blowing. And it isn't just adults applying for mortgages either. The source brings up the deployment of predictive AI in public education.
This one is particularly heavy.
Yeah, it really is. These systems attempt to assess a student's quote-unquote learning trajectory. So the machine analyzes a child's background, matches it against historical academic data, and just predicts their future performance.
From day one.
Right. And then it channels them towards certain educational tracks or steers them away from advanced opportunities based entirely on a preemptive calculation.
The mechanics of that are deeply concerning when you consider how statistical correlation actually functions.
Yeah.
Because the AI is matching a student's profile to historical failure or success rates.
Yeah.
And in doing so, it often encodes the exact socioeconomic disparities that public education is theoretically designed to mitigate in the first place. The model doesn't understand context or potential. It only understands historical math. So it preemptively limits a student's options before they've even taken a test.
I have to jump in here and push back on this a little because I can hear you, the listener, thinking right now. Haven't banks and insurance companies always made calculated assumptions about our risk?
That's a fair point.
I mean, the entire business model of an insurance company is making an educated guess, right? How is an AI looking at my neighborhood or my grocery purchases fundamentally any different from, an old school human actuary doing the math on a legal pad 30 years ago?
It's a great question. The fundamental difference comes down to the concept the text calls structural asymmetry.
Structural asymmetry, okay.
When a human actuary denies you a policy or a loan, there is a methodology that can be decomposed and audited. A human underwriter can point to, say, a specific debt-to-income ratio or a specific incident on your driving record that disqualified you.
Right, there's a specific reason.
The math is linear. You can review it, argue it, or take steps to fix it.
You can basically see the math on the chalkboard.
Exactly. But with advanced AI models, specifically these black box deep learning models, there's a total loss of decomposability. These models operate using billions of parameters interacting in highly nonlinear ways.
So it's not a straight line anymore.
Not at all. When the system outputs a no, reverse engineering the exact cause of that rejection is often mathematically impossible, even for the engineers who programmed the system in the first place. The AI might have weighed your Tuesday morning coffee habit against your zip code and, I don't know, the scrolling speed on your smartphone.
The human actuary has basically been replaced by a mathematical void that simply produces an outcome.
And that loss of decomposability leads to a profound loss of power for the individual. The structure of the transaction is totally asymmetrical. You, the individual, provide the raw data. The algorithmic system generates the intelligence, the inference,
right,
and you bear the entire real-world consequence of that inference. You pay the higher insurance premium, you get denied the mortgage, you lose the job opportunity, but the system retains all the intelligence and all the power.
Wow.
At no point do you have visibility into what was concluded, nor do you have any mechanism to challenge the logic.
So if these systems are fundamentally unauditable at a mathematical level, and they are making life-altering decisions about our finances, our careers, our kids, how is the legal system handling it?
Yeah.
Because we are constantly bombarded with updates about data privacy laws, right?
Well, the frustrating reality highlighted in the source is that the legal system has fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the technological threat.
How so?
The text points to the foundational research of two legal scholars, Sandra Wachter and Brett Mittelstadt. They published a pivotal paper on this back in 2019.
Yeah, and they gave this specific governance gap a name.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Wachter and Mittelstadt argued that our current legal frameworks provide essentially zero protection against what they termed high-risk inferences.
High-risk inferences.
Right. These are conclusions drawn by a machine that might be wildly inaccurate, highly discriminatory, and carry massive consequences for an individual's life opportunities. Their research really exposed a glaring blind spot in the most celebrated privacy laws we have, most notably the GDPR in Europe.
This was the real eye-opener in the text for me, because the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, it's heavily marketed as this, impenetrable fortress protecting your privacy.
Gold standard.
Right, the gold standard. It forces companies to ask for your consent. It regulates how cookies track you. It gives you the right to delete your profile. But it only fiercely guards the inputs. It regulates the raw personal data.
It governs the collection phase brilliantly.
But the massive loophole is that the law provides you almost zero rights over the outputs. It's like having a top-notch, state-of-the-art security system for the warehouse where you store your raw materials, but leaving the loading dock completely unlocked and unguarded when the finished products are shipped out.
That's a perfect way to put it.
You have the legal right to demand a tech company delete the raw data of your resume. But you have absolutely no legal right to even see, let alone delete, the statistical conclusion the AI manufactured using that resume. We've spent a decade heavily policing the input, while the output, the actual inference dictating your life, remains a completely unregulated Wild West.
And as long as that legal blind spot exists, the doors will continue to close for people like David. The legal framework is obsessing over the ingredients while completely ignoring what the algorithm is actually cooking with them.
So what does this all mean? How do we actually build a lock for that loading dock? If current data privacy laws are looking in the wrong direction, what is the mechanism to close this loophole and give you, the listener, your sovereignty back?
This brings us to the core solution proposed in the excerpt. The author introduces a new legal and technical framework called inference escrow.
Inference escrow.
Yeah. The central premise is that we must stop legally treating AI inferences as proprietary corporate trade secrets. Instead, we have to treat those algorithmic conclusions as heavily regulated artifacts.
So it requires moving from a world where your behavioral risk score is this shadowy corporate asset to a world where that score is kept in a transparent glass box. You can see it, and crucially, you hold the cryptographic key to open it.
Exactly. And the underlying technology to make this possible actually already exists.
Oh, really?
Yeah. To implement inference escrow, systems would utilize technologies like decentralized identity protocols and zero-knowledge proofs. Instead of a corporation generating an inference and storing it on their centralized servers forever, the inference is generated and immediately deposited into an encrypted data enclave that only you control.
Okay, I get the concept of owning the data enclave, but let's play devil's advocate here. If I'm in the back of an ambulance or applying for emergency financial aid, I am not going to pull out my phone and start negotiating cryptographic data rights while in a crisis.
No, of course not.
So how does inference escrow survive real-world power imbalances where the user basically has zero leverage?
That's a really vital question, and the author specifically addresses that vulnerability by breaking inference escrow down into two distinct tiers of protection.
Okay, two tiers.
The scenario you just described falls under the first tier, called systemic protection. This is engineered for situations where an individual is under severe constraint and cannot realistically manage their own escrow box.
Like the ambulance example.
Right. A patient trading biometric data for critical medical care, or a warehouse worker subjected to continuous algorithmic surveillance just to keep their paycheck. They cannot negotiate. The power dynamic is entirely asymmetrical there.
The system has all the leverage.
Precisely. Therefore, the protection cannot rely on the individual clicking a consent form. The governance has to be systemic. It must be built directly into the database architecture, automatically auditing the inferences as they are generated to ensure they meet strict legal thresholds for fairness and accuracy, without requiring the vulnerable person to initiate a challenge themselves.
Okay, so that covers the emergency scenarios, the vulnerable situations. What is the mechanism for the rest of our daily digital interactions?
That is the second tier, what the author calls the safe deposit box model.
Safe deposit box.
Yeah. For everyday situations, applying for a mortgage, shopping online, navigating a job portal, any high-risk inference generated about you is deposited into your personal escrow. Under this framework, you decide who gets access to that conclusion. You decide when they get to see it and for what specific purpose.
So using those zero-knowledge proofs you mentioned earlier, I could theoretically prove to a bank that my AI-generated creditworthiness score meets their required threshold without ever actually handing them the raw score to keep in their own databases.
Exactly. You authenticate the reality without surrendering ownership of the artifact itself.
Wow.
It entirely inverts the default rule of the modern digital economy. Currently, the default assumption is that the corporation that trained the neural network owns the inference it produces. Inference escrow rewrites that foundational rule so that the inference legally belongs to the human being it describes. You own the algorithmic rumor about yourself.
That is a massive paradigm shift. I mean, you have the authority to look at an unverified assumption generated by a server farm and say, I am revoking your access to use this statistical hallucination to deny my loan.
It is huge. But this raises an important question, however, and it is a caveat the author is very careful to outline in the text. We have to be clear-eyed about what inference escrow actually accomplishes. It is not a utopian fix.
It doesn't magically ensure David gets the job at the tech firm.
It does not. Neither the systemic protection tier nor the safe deposit box model guarantees a favorable outcome. David might unlock his escrow, review the AI's inference regarding his employment gap, formally contest it, and the human hiring manager might review the appeal and still decide to reject his application.
Right, so the rejection still happens, but the architecture of the rejection fundamentally changes.
Yes, it guarantees visibility and due process. It ensures the conclusion is documented, that it is legally accountable, and that it is ultimately subject to human review, rather than just being quietly executed by a line of code in the dark.
Which is huge.
It is about dragging the machinery of societal decision-making out of the black box and forcing it into the light. Because a society where human potential is governed by unaccountable, invisible intelligence is a society that has forfeited its digital sovereignty.
It reestablishes a chain of logic we can actually engage with. I think the core takeaway from this deep dive is that the overarching goal of digital sovereignty isn't necessarily getting everything you want. It's simply ensuring the doors in your life do not slam shut without you knowing why.
Exactly.
You may fundamentally disagree with the reason, but you deserve the basic dignity of knowing what the reason is. It completely changes how you view every click, every scroll, and every digital interaction you have. But before we wrap up today, I really want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, building on this concept of the safe deposit box.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's imagine the legal framework shifts tomorrow. You wake up and you are handed the master cryptographic key to your own personal escrow of AI inferences. Every conclusion, every algorithm is ever generated about your micro-habits, your personality flaws, your predicted future capabilities, your statistical likelihood of failure, it is all sitting right there in an encrypted glass box waiting for you to unlock it.
That's a lot of data.
Right. So here is the question. Would you actually want to open it? What if the machine's completely unbiased, aggregated conclusions about who you really are, without any of the flattering narratives we all tell ourselves, are something you simply aren't psychologically prepared to read?
Oof, that's a heavy thought.
It is. It is definitely something to think about the next time a platform asks you to accept all cookies.
Yeah.
We want to thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the invisible architecture of your digital life. Keep questioning the algorithms, and we will catch you next time.